Frostfall, Book 10 of 2920, The Last Year of the First Era, by Karlovak Townway. 10th Frostfall 2920. Phrygia's High Rock. The creature before them blinked, senseless, its eyes glazed, mouth opening and closing, as if relieving its function. A thin glob of salvia burbled down between its fangs and hung suspended. Drada had never seen anything of its kind before. Reptilian and massive, perched on its hind leg like a man. Ministera applauded enthusiastically. "My child," she crowed, "you have come so far in so short a time. What were you thinking when you summoned this Daedra?" It took Drada a moment to recall whether she was thinking anything at all. She was merely overwhelmed that she had reached out across the fabric of reality into the realm of Oblivion, and plucked forth this loathsome creature, conjuring it into the world by the power of her mind. "I was thinking about the color red," Drada said, concentrating. The simplicity and clarity of it. And then I desired, and spoke the charm. And this is what I conjured up. "Desire is a powerful force for a young witch," said Ministera. "And it's well matched in this instance, for this Daedra is nothing if not a simple force of the spirits. Can you release your desire as easily?" Drada closed her eyes and spoke the dismissal invocation. The monster faded away like a painting in sunlight, still blinking confusedly. Ministera embraced her dark-eyed pupil, laughing with delight. "I never would have believed it. A month and a day you've been with the coven, and you're already far more advanced than most of the women here. There's powerful blood in you, Drada. You touch the spirits like you are touching a lover. You will be leading this coven one day. I have seen it." Drada smiled. It was good to be complimented. The Duke of Mournhold had praised her pretty face, and her family, before she had dishonored them, praised her manners. Cassier had been nothing more than a companion. His compliments meant nothing, but with Ministera she felt she was home. "You'll be leading the coven for many years yet, great sister," said Drada. "I certainly intend to, but the spirits, while marvelous companions and faultless tellers of truth, are often heavy about the when and hows. You can't blame them, really. When and how mean so little to them." Ministera opened the door to the shed, allowing the brisk autumn breeze in to dispel the bitter and fetid smells of the Daedra. "Now I need you to run an errand to Wayrest. It's only a week's ride there and a week's ride back. Bring Doriatha and Thedefina with you. As much as we try to be self-sufficient, there are herbs we can't grow here, and we seem to run through an enormous quantity of gems in no time at all. It's important that the people of the city learn to recognize you as one of the wise women of Skeffington Coven. You'll find the benefits of being Nortress far outweigh the inconveniences." Drada did as she was bade. As she and her sisters climbed aboard their horses, Ministera brought her child, little 5-month-old Bosriel, to kiss her mother goodbye. The witches were in love with the little Dunmer infant, fathered by a wicked duke, birthed by wild-eyed elves in the forest heart of the empire. Drada knew her nursemates would protect her child with their lives. After many kisses and a farewell wave, the 3 young witches rode off into the bright woods under a covering of red, yellow, and orange. 12th Frostfall 2920. Dwinnen High Rock. For a middas evening, the least loved Porcupine Tavern was widely crowded. A roaring fire in the pit in the center of the room cast an almost sinister glow on all the regulars, made the abundance of bodies look like a punishment tapestry inspired by the Arcturian heresies. Cassier took his usual place with his cousin and ordered a flagon of ale. "Have you been to see the Baron?" asked Paleth. "Yes, he may have work for me in the palace of Uranus," said Cassier proudly. "But more than that I can't say. You understand, the secrets of state and all that. Why are there so many damn people here tonight?" "A shipload of dark elves just came into harbor. They've come from the war. I was just waiting until you got here to introduce you as another veteran." Cassier blushed, but regained his composure enough to ask, "What are they doing here? Has there been a truce?" I don't know the full story, said Pedith, but apparently the Emperor and Vivek are in negotiations again. These fellas here have investments they were keen to check on, and they figured things on the bay were quiet enough. But the only way we can get the full story is to talk to the chaps. With that, Pedith gripped his cousin's arm and pulled him to the other side of the bar, so suddenly Cassia would have had to struggle violently to resist. The Dunmer travelers were spread out across 4 of the tables, laughing with the locals. They were largely amiable young men, well-dressed, befitting merchants, animated in gesture, made more extravagant by liquor. "Excuse me," said Polith, intruding on the conversation. "My shy cousin Cassia was in the war as well, fighting for the living god Vivek." "The only Cassia I ever heard of," said one of the Dunmer drunkenly with a wide, friendly smile, shaking Cassia's free hand, "was the Cassia Righty, who Vivek said was the worst spy in history. We lost old Marak due to his bundling intelligence work. For your sake, friend, I hope the 2 of you were never confused." Cassie smiled and listened as the lord told the story of his failure with bountiful extravagations, which caused the table to roar with laughter. Several eyes looked his way, but none of the locals thought to explain that the fool of the tale was standing at attention. The eyes that stung the most were his cousin's. The young man who had believed that he had returned to Dwinan as a great hero. At some point certainly the Baron would hear about it, his idiocy increasing manifold with each retelling. With every fiber in his soul, Cassia cursed the living god Vivek. 21's Frostfall, 2920. Simpure City, Cyrodiil. Cauda, in a robe of blinding whiteness, a uniform of the priestesses of the Hageth Morva Conservatorium, arrived in the city just as the first winter storm was passing. The clouds broke with sunlight, and the beauteous teenage red god girl appeared in the wide avenue with his god, riding towards the palace. While his sister was tall, thin, angular, and haughty, Cauda was a small, round-faced lad with wide brown eyes. The locals were quick to draw comparisons. "Not a month after Our Lady Regia's execution," muttered a housemaid, peering out the window and winking to a neighbor. "And not a month out of the nunnery neither," the other woman agreed, reveling in the scandal. "This one's in for a ride. Her sister weren't no innocent, and look where she ended up." 24th Frostfall, 2920. Dwinan, High Rock. Cassia stood on the harbor and watched the early sleet fall on the water. It was a pity, he thought, that he was prone to seasickness. There was nothing for him now in Tamriel, and to the east or the west. Vivek's tale of his poor spycraft had spread to the taverns everywhere. The Baron of Dwin had released him from his contract. No doubt they were laughing about him in Daggerfall too, and Dawnster, Lilmonth, Rimmen, Greenheart, probably in Arkovir, and Yokuda, for that matter. Perhaps it would be best to drop into the waves and sink. The thought, however, did not stay long in his mind. It was not despair that haunted him, but rage, impotent fury that he could not assuage. "Excuse me, sir," said a voice behind him, making him jump. "I'm sorry to disturb you, but I was wondering if you could recommend an inexpensive tavern for me to spend the night." It was a young man, a Nord, with a sack over his shoulder. Obviously, he had just disembarked from one of the boats. For the first time in weeks, someone was looking at Cassia as something other than a colossal famous idiot. He could not help, black as his mood was, but he friendly. "You've just arrived from Skyrim?" asked Cassia. "No, sir, that's where I'm going," said the fellow. "I'm working my way home. I've come up from Sentinel, and before that Stros M'Kai, and before that Woodhearth and Valenwood, and before that Arthiam and Somerset. Wallach's my name." Cassia introduced himself and shook Wallach's hand. "Did you say that you came from Ertram? Are you a psychic?" "No, sir, not anymore," the fellow shrugged. "I was expelled." "Do you know anything about the Mum Daedra? You see, I want to cast a curse against a particularly powerful person. One might say a living god, and I haven't had any luck. The Baron won't allow me in his sight, but the Baronets had sympathy for me and allowed me the use of their summoning chambers." Cassia spat. "I did all the rituals, made sacrifices, but nothing came of it. That would be because of Sothasil, my old master. replied Wellek with some bitterness. The Daedra princes have agreed not to be summoned by any amateurs, at least until the war ends. Only the Psychics may counsel with the Daedra, and a few nomadic sorcerers and witches. Witches, did you say? 29th Frostfall, 2920. Rygia's High Rock. Pale sunlight flickered behind the mist, bathing the forest as Turala, Doriatha, and Serafina drove their horses on. The ground was wet, with a thin layer of frost and laden down with goods. It was a slippery way over the unpaved hills. Turala tried to contain her excitement about coming back to the coven. Wayrest had been an adventure, and she adored the looks of fear and respect the city folk gave her. But for the last few days, all she could think of was returning to her sisters and her child. A bitter wind whipped her hair forwards, so she could see nothing but the path ahead. She did not hear the rider approach to her side until he was almost upon her. When she turned and saw Cassia, she shouted with as much surprise as pleasure as meeting an old friend. His face was pale and drawn, but she took it to be merely from terror. "What brings you back to Phrygias?" she smiled. "Were you not treated well in Dwyn?" "Well enough," said Cassia. "I have need of the Skeffington coven." "Ride with us," said Turala. "I'll bring you to the Ministera." The four continued on, and the witches regaled Cassia with tales of Wayrest. It was evident that it was also a rare treat for Dorothea and Serafina to leave old Barwin's farm. They had been born there as daughters and granddaughters of Skeffington witches. Ordinary High Rock city life was exotic to them, as it was to Turala. Cassia said little, but smiled and nodded his head. She was encouragement enough. Thankfully, none of the stories they had heard were about his own stupidity, or at the very least, they did not tell him. Doriatha was in the midst of a tale she had heard in a tavern about a thief who had been locked overnight in a pawn shop when they crossed over a familiar hill. Suddenly, she halted in the story. The barn was supposed to be visible, but it was not. The other three followed her gaze into the fog, and a moment later, they rode as fast as they could towards what was once the site of Skeffington Coven. The fire had long since burned out. Nothing but ashes, skeletons, and broken weaponry remained. Cassia recognized at once the signs of an orc raid. The witches fell from their horses, racing through the remains, wailing. Serafina found a tattered, bloody piece of cloth that she recognized from Ministera's cloak. She held it to her ashen face, sobbing. Turala screamed for Bosriel, but the only reply was a high whistling wind through the ashes. "Who did this?" she cried, tears streaking down her face. "I swear I'll conjure up the very flames of Oblivion. What have they done with my baby?" "I know who did it," said Cassia quietly, dropping from his horse and walking towards her. "I've seen these weapons before. I fear I met the Verifians responsible in Dwyn, but I never thought they would find you. This is a work of assassins hired by the Duke of Mornhold." He paused. The lie came easily. Adapt and improvise. What's more, he could tell instantly that she believed it. The resentment over the cruelty the Duke had shown her had quieted, but never disappeared. One look at her burning eyes told him that she would summon the Daedra and wreak his and her revenge upon Morrowind. And what's more, he knew they'd listen. And listen they did. For the power that is greater than desire is rage, even rage misplaced.